A step-by-step plan for a perfect first date. Today you're going to learn the 7 stages of the date, important principles when it comes to building attraction, mindsets, as well as mistakes you have to avoid to turn the first date with her into a success.
Stage 0, before the date.
What happens before the date has a massive impact on your performance during the date. So it's super important that you put yourself in a good mood. Listen to music, go to the gym, go to the sauna, have an ice bath, get sun, spend time with high-quality male friends. But most importantly, call a friend on the way to the date. You can't possibly expect yourself to be verbally agile and free-flowingly tell stories in an exciting fashion if you haven't spoken in the preceding 2 hours because you were doing logical and cerebral work. So you have to create micro-momentum, and that phone call is a super important hack.
Stage 1, the welcome.
Don't greet her with a formal handshake. Instead, give her a kiss on the cheek or a simple hug. Thereby, you create a little bit of physicality in a very respectful and calibrated fashion, and it sets the tone for the rest of the date.
Stage 2, comfort.
During the comfort phase of the date, which is the beginning, it's not about being super fun, it's not about touching her, it's not about verbally escalating things, it's just about creating rapport and trust. Remember, you're a stranger that you met off a dating app off the internet. Now, if you approach her in person, fair enough, there's already a little bit of rapport built. But assume she's not yet comfortable. Oftentimes, women will have a little bit of protective body language in the beginning. It'll take her time to open up to you. So positivity is extremely important. You just want to vibe. You don't need to be too disagreeable yet. You don't need to be too provocative yet. That all comes later. Just create a base from which you can then operate and move things forward. What else do you think is important in the first 15-ish minutes of the date?
Well, as a woman, we want to make sure that the guy is not a creep and we are safe.
Yeah, 3 super important mindsets that you have to have throughout the entire interaction of the first date. The first one is, she already likes you. You don't have to try to get her to like you. Even though everything we're doing here is to increase the probability that she will like you. The only useful mindset to adopt while you're on the date is, of course she already likes me. And it's true, because if she met you off a dating app, she's already done a degree of pre-qualifying and she's assessed, at least physically, that she likes you. So now it's just your job to not mess it up. That's the first one. The second mindset is that you can't be needy. You can show to her that you want her. Desire is perfectly fine, but that you don't need her. We're going to talk about neediness in a couple of minutes, but it's super crucial that you understand that if she feels the tiniest degree of neediness that may manifest itself in being overly agreeable or having that beta acceptance seeking head nod and that fake smile, if she feels that, she's going to get turned off instantaneously. The third mindset is, if this is meant to be, there's nothing in the world that I can do to mess this up. If it's not meant to be, there's nothing in the world that I can do to make it work. Now, obviously, you probably still lack a skill set and you probably still have to improve your communication skills with women. But again, when you're on the date, it doesn't make sense to think about that, because remember, whatever you focus on, you're gonna feel. So simply by focusing on that this is already a done deal, you'll naturally start exhibiting non-verbal cues that move the interaction in the right direction.
Another thing that's important is that you detach yourself from the outcome. While you may want the date to go well, you have to be totally okay with her walking away. Stage 3, fun.
Fun is the reason she's on the date. Now, fun does not mean being funny. If you're not a funny guy, don't try to be a comedian. Don't do dad jokes. That's not going to work well in your favor because it's not authentic. And there's nothing more cringy than a guy trying to be funny who's not naturally funny. But being fun and lighthearted and playful and being able to use self-deprecation, not too often, by the way, because self-deprecation overused is going to make you come across as insecure, but not used at all, you'll also miss out on opportunities to make you come across as incredibly confident. Because if you can make fun of yourself, she teases you, and instead of you trying to justify yourself, you simply accept and amplify the premise. You say yes and, one of the most important communication tools ever, yes and. That's going to make you come across as so secure within yourself because you're not easily offended and you can take a joke. That is the reason she's on the date. It cannot be a serious, logical, factual exchange of information. So just simply by putting your intention on being more fun and lighthearted and playful, the probability that the date is going to go well goes up a lot.
Stage 4, building tension.
Now, you don't want to get stuck on being a joker because then you might get friend-zoned. So it's important that you do create a man-to-woman connection, that you create tension. There's basically two ways of doing that, verbally as well as non-verbally. If we look at how to do that non-verbally first, it's very important that you're very respectful, calibrated, and that you read her signs. So one of the easiest ways to build a little bit of physicality is simply a fist bump. You tell her something, you agree, and you just say, hey, I really like that. Boom, fist bump. Or a high five. Or another one is you go in for a hug. Now, the way you go in for a hug is you don't do this. Hey, it was very nice. It's very comforting, mamacita. No. Instead, for example, if you tease her, you make fun of her, you say, come here. You just, look how I'm extending my hand. I'm not really giving up my frame, my balance. I'm extending my arm and say, come here. And you do this. And again, I'm not overly holding this for too long. And I see whenever she wants to move away, the second I feel the slightest sensation, I let go. It's extremely important that you read her signals because whenever you build physicality, either through a fist bump or a high five, you're going to get one of three signals, a positive, a neutral, or a negative. A neutral is just a neutral high five, boom. A bit more neutral, boom, normal high five, perfect. A positive is her interlocking fingers, for example, or a little bit just push against it a bit. Yeah, you see that? That's her initiating more physical contact than necessary, or her actually interlocking. That's a positive. If I get a positive or a neutral, then I can assume she's comfortable with the degree of physical contact that's been established. Now, pull back a little bit on the, pull back a little bit as if you don't really want to do the high five. Pull back. Yeah, exactly. Like, you can see it in her face. She pulled back like a little bit. If she's not enthusiastic about that, then I will not continue to build physical contact. Now, if she's comfortable with that, the next thing that I might do is just put my fingers on her arm. The outside of her arm, not the inside of her arm, never this area, be super respectful and calibrated. But let's say we're talking, bloop-de-whoop, I'm talking about something personal development related, or I'm telling her about how I trained karate for 6 years, I was teaching at my university, and I was like, yeah, you do martial arts as well? You see this? Very gentle, very non-invasive. And then I see, like back off a little bit, like you're not comfortable with it. Exactly, boom. And then I immediately create space. I might actually move away a little bit, which I'm not going to do for the sake of the video right now, which I might do in this instance. Because the second you realize she's not comfortable with the degree of physical contact you build, or verbally, which we're going to get to in a second, you create space. You pull back. But if I do that, and she doesn't move at all, or smile a bit, exactly, that's like a positive sign. And then you can continue. And in the next stage, we're going to look at how you can actually escalate that to the kiss. But first, we're going to look at verbal ways of escalating things and building a man-to-woman connection. Actually, before I'm going to give you the keys to building tension verbally, there's two more things I want to talk about when it comes to doing so non-verbally. One is eye contact. Absolutely important. Exactly. The way you look at her has to convey to her that you're a man who means business. Oh, David, I got friends on. Because you communicate like a friend. If I look at her, not with my eyelids pulled back, but relaxed and steady, extended eye contact, she'll feel the tension. Because most men aren't even able to hold it for 10, 15, 20 seconds. Now, there is a point of diminishing returns where if you do it for a minute, it gets a bit weird. And then you have to strategically break it. But being able to train yourself to hold eye contact for longer than you usually would is absolutely crucial. Here's an amazing secret tip for you that you can use to build physicality as well as a man-to-woman connection, as well as create emotions within her. It's the palm reading game. So at some point throughout the day, usually in phase 4, half an hour in, 45 minutes in, an hour in, whatever, there's no exact timestamps for it, you say, give me your hand for a second. Turn around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read your lifeline and I'm going to predict your life, okay?
Okay.
You ready for this? All right, cool. So she may be a little hesitant, that's fine. Now, if she doesn't want to give you the hand, obviously that's fine, right? And you want to see if she's comfortable or not. We talked about it a minute ago. Then you just take the lifeline and then you do cold reads, you do assumptions. Something playful, something silly. And if you do something called a future projection, it has to be a negative. I'm going to show you what that means in a second. So you might say, okay, sorry, so you're born in Brazil, then you go to that really fancy university, then you come to Ireland, you meet this amazing German ginger, you have 17 ginger sons, you get a divorce, and then you marry a gay guy in the south of France. And that's basically your life, and then you'll end up dancing fajo and salsa until you wither away eating lobster. I've never told the story quite like that, it's obviously nonsense. But what did I do here? When you pace through the inside of her hand, let somebody, she's like, yeah. Like, how does it feel? Like, what do you feel? Itchy. But you're itchy. It doesn't work, leave it. But do you feel emotions when I do it? Say yes for the sake of the video.
Yes.
No, but you actually did when I did it. Because we actually did that on our first date. I actually did it with her. And it does create some emotions. So you just pace along and she goes, itchy, right? So it does create some emotions and it's very, very powerful. Now, I didn't just say, oh, we're gonna get married and we're gonna live happily ever after. Why? Because that would add a lot of pressure to her. That would make her feel, oh, this guy wants too much too soon. It's an overinvestment. It's gonna kill attraction. Pressure, okay? You wanna put a little bit of pressure on, pressure off. So if you do some future pacing, a future projection, it has to be in a negative. Yeah, and then we're gonna get a divorce and you're gonna marry a gay guy and you're gonna wither away in the south of France dancing bachata and fall. Bloop-de-whoop. I've never said it quite like that before, and the exact words don't matter, but I'd encourage you to have a couple of assumptions and a couple of cold reads prepared beforehand. This one is super powerful. So how do you build tension verbally? Here's a couple of very practical pieces of advice. The first one is compliments. Most men don't compliment women nearly enough, or they over-compliment them. Now, if you want her to know that you like her, you don't tell her, hey, I really like you. No, you give her specific compliments. So, for example, she may say something, you might say, yeah, that's actually awesome. I really like that. Or you say, your hair looks amazing. Or I really like your posture. Or you have the cutest facial expressions. You make it tailored. Now, obviously, any compliment can be applied to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, but the more it's tailored, the better it is. You could say, hey, the way you use makeup, especially around your eyes, really nicely done. Most girls suck at it. And then you can add something like that, which is a bit of a provocative statement, and it shows you have very little filters, which is something we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes as well. But tailored compliments are important. If you do it too much, again, it's an overinvestment, it's going to kill attraction. But do use compliments for either something she said or a physical appearance. Very important. Another way to verbally escalate things and to build a little bit of tension is to tease her. Now, people think of teasing as such a horrible thing, but it's actually something you do with any person in your life, male or female, that you feel comfortable with. If you understand why we actually exist as human beings, it is to experience happiness and positive emotions. And we think we have to do all these things, achieve this in our career, in our business, and then I'll finally allow myself to feel happy. But if you actually tune into the reality of existence, which is that we can allow ourselves to experience positive emotions right now, and one of the ways to do that is teasing, then you can bestow the ultimate gift upon her, which is positive emotions. Teasing her lightens up the mood. Remember, it makes things fun, lighthearted and playful, which is also very important because if you make it very romantic, if you're not fully going for the kiss, it's important to not do so in a serious way. Building tension shouldn't be serious. It should still be fun and lighthearted. So if you tease her, never tease her for something she can't change. Never tease her for something physically. Only ever tease her for something she just said or maybe something she did in the past. Being fun and playful and also allowing her to tease you and being able to take a joke lightens up the atmosphere and it contributes to positive emotions. Another advanced way to build tension is the so-called push-pull technique. And I'm not the biggest fan of techniques, but for you as a man who thinks very logically and tends to get stuck in his head and overthinks a lot, it's important to have processes and systems that you can fall back on if you get stuck and you run out of things to say. Push-pull simply means you create a positive emotional spike and a negative emotional spike. Because remember, the more you flatline, the more boring it gets. In the beginning, when you're just vibing, when you want to build comfort, you don't have to have that many spikes. But at some point, you need to make her feel emotions. Remember, it doesn't just have to be a positive spike. It can also be a tease, which is a slight negative emotional spike. But really good ones are a combination. And again, you can learn some of these lines. The best ones will be the ones you make up in the moment. But if I were to tell you to just make up the perfect push-pull technique when you're on a date with a lady you're really attracted to, you say, "Ah, but I can't, it's too much." So here's one. "Hey, I really like your hair."
Thank you.
Is it real?
Yes.
Little silly example. Or, "I really like your outfit."
Thank you.
What the hell are those shoes? Little standard teasing one, but trust me, steal them and they work. The best form of communication is authentic and free-flowing in the moment. But trust me, every now and then you will want some structure to be able to fall back on. There's obviously a lot more than that, but these are extremely useful. Before we get to the stage of the kiss, let's talk about a couple of things you can never do on a first date. The first one is talk about your exes. It's going to make you come across as somebody who doesn't have options or isn't over them. It signals a lot of very wrong things. The next thing you can never do is talk about other men. Just don't talk about other men in general. If she brings up her ex, you say, just talk about your ex. Say, "My ex, blah, blah, blah."
My ex used to
Play football. Play football.
play football.
Okay, cool. So anyway, remember what we were talking about earlier about traveling? You just switch the conversation. It doesn't matter. You just say, "Okay, cool, anyway." And you let her know that you're displeased with the fact that she brought up her ex. Now, you're not going to be unpleasant or disrespectful about it, but it's okay for her to realize that you're a man with firm boundaries, gentle yet firm. Another thing you also really don't want to do is try to impress her. On a macro level, of course, everything we're trying to do is to impress her. But the more you're trying to impress her, the higher the probability that you're going to fail. The next thing you can never do is to filter yourself. You don't even realize how much you're currently filtering your communication. Because in a work context, it's perfectly applicable that you filter what you say, that you think hard and long before you speak up in a meeting to your business partners, your employees. Everything you have to say, everything you say has to have merit. But in a dating context, that's not the case. Train yourself to have a thought and actually speak it. Now, that degree of radical honesty has to be paired with effectiveness because, for example, if I were to approach Fernanda in a Starbucks, I couldn't just say, "Hey, you're really attractive. I would greatly appreciate it if we could make love tonight." Very honest, not very effective, right? A bit of an extreme example, but it gets the point across. Stop filtering yourself. She needs to see that you're a man who can speak his truth and then let the cards fall where they may. And if it turns out that there's a lack of compatibility between the two of you, then so be it, you're going to walk separate ways. Because remember, you are dating with intent. You want to find the right woman for marriage or at least for a long-term relationship. You're not just here to go on hundreds of dates. You want to find something serious. The best way to screen for compatibility is to be radically honest and to see what happens. If she's easily offended, okay, cool, that means she's insecure and you're not going to get along anyway. Now, it does have to be filtered and you can't be weird. So not zero filters, but a lot less. Chances are, if you're doing very well in your career or your business at this point in time and you're a well-functioning member of society, you've already learned to be calibrated. So that probably isn't the issue. If you imagine a scale of too calibrated on the one hand, and on the other hand, too honest, you're probably on this side. Doesn't mean you need to go to that extreme, but move over to this direction a little bit and watch magic unfold. Women aren't used to men speaking what they actually believe. It builds an unfathomable amount of attraction. Because what do you communicate to her when you're radically honest? You're implying that you're willing to lose her. Because most men, they're just too agreeable the whole time, which is what you can't do. And that implies that you don't have options. If I speak the truth and I risk offending her, even if I'm trying to be polite, even though I want to be respectful at all times, if I risk losing her, it subcommunicates to her that I must have options available to myself as a man, which in turn is pre-selection value. It's social proof. It makes me more attractive because no woman on earth wants to be with a man without options. So far, we've gone through a lot of stages, a lot of principles, mindsets, and things you have to avoid. And you might say, David, that's all well and good, but one of the big things I struggle with is nervousness. I get insecure when I'm on a date around a woman who's beautiful inside out. What do? Worry not, my friend. Here is cutting-edge neuroscience that you can use to put yourself in a more competent state. Because what you have to understand is that nervousness is just a state of mind, which means thoughts and emotions, physical sensations you experience that you then attribute a negative meaning to, and that negative meaning is going to refeed into the negative state. So what you need is a pattern interrupt. What I'm going to show you right now looks very silly, but trust me, I've learned it from one of Germany's best psychologists, Gunther Schmidt. If you're on the date and you feel a sense of nervousness coming up, then here's what you can do. You can simply say, David is a little bit nervous. David is shitting his pants. Or you can even say the same words associated, I'm going to talk about the difference in a second, with a Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse type of voice. I'm a little nervous. I'm afraid. What if she rejects me? I'm so scared. Oh no! And I'm fully aware that it seems almost ridiculous, but remember, I'm going to explain the theory behind it in a second. I've learned this from one of Germany's best psychologists who's been using those techniques for decades. What happens is, if you're nervous on a date, you are fully associated with the nervous part within you. So we need to dissociate yourself from that suffering side. I might say, nervousness isn't suffering. Well, it's a state of suffering. It's not you in your most competent form, in the most competent state. And if you want to be the most effective version of yourself on the date, then you have to prime a more empowering and competent state. So if you simply say, David is a little bit nervous, then you're relating to the nervous part from a competent part and you're immediately dissociating, which in turn lowers the cortisol, lowers the stress immediately. Your subjective experience of nervousness gets lowered instantaneously because you're associating with the competent side within you. Or you stay associated, but you say the words, your inner dialogue, in such a funny way that you can't actually take it serious anymore. Because, remember, one of the things that massively influences our mental and emotional state is our internal dialogue. And it's not just what we say, but how we say it. Oftentimes, if you feel stressed or angry or frustrated, that voice has a certain tonality to it. Maybe it's heavy, maybe it's really scared. But if you say it in a way where you, even just in your own mind, obviously not outright towards her, like, she's gonna be crazy and she's gonna call somebody and they're gonna lock you up. That's not the case. Internally, it's a little mind game you play with yourself. It's extremely effective. You might say, I'm a little bit nervous. What if she rejects me? I don't think she liked my joke. Is she comfortable? What if she doesn't want to kiss me? The awkward silence. It seems silly, but if you actually do it, you will not be able to believe the fear anymore. It is extremely powerful. Try this out the next time you're on the date, and it's called a pattern interrupt, and you'll be able to step out from that insecure and suffering part, and you'll be able to prime a more empowering and competent state, or rather regain a sense of competence in the moment. Now, obviously, overall, the source of that nervousness is mindset. It's a lack of competence. So you do have to develop a skill set and better communication skills, because in any area in life where you feel confident, you have a competence. So you need to develop that competence, but this is an extremely powerful pattern interrupt that you can use in the moment when you feel a sense of nervousness arising. Another important note on that is, whatever you resist persists. The more you feel the sense of nervousness and you don't want to feel it because oh no, I'm getting nervous, and you label the nervousness as a problem, the more it becomes a problem. Now, what you can easily say is, I must be excited too, because the physiological sensation of nervousness and excitement, they're so similar that you can actually reframe it. Tony Robbins has done that. Mel Robbins, she wrote a book about that. Gunther Schmidt talks about that. Milton Erickson, some of the biggest legends in the field, they're all fully aware of this fact that whenever you care about something, obviously there's going to be a degree of nervousness. But the nervousness is not a problem. It only becomes a problem if you ascribe a negative meaning to it. If you give it the meaning that this is a problem, I should not feel nervous. Well, I'm feeling it already. I can't not feel it. What do I do? Well, then you're in a negative double bind. You just, if I go this way, if I go that way, I'm going to fail either way. I'm in a situation that I cannot possibly resolve, which obviously increases stress. But if you just say, I must be excited to see where things go. I must be excited too. This is extremely powerful. The next 17 times in your life you feel nervousness, you simply say, I must be excited too, and you fill in the blank. The 18th time, 11th time, 9th time, 25th time, you will actually begin to feel a sense of excitement. It's very difficult to go from anger to joy. Be angry, like, I'm so joyful, I'm so grateful. It doesn't work. But nervousness and excitement, they are so similar, you can actually cognitively reframe one as the other, give it an empowering meaning, and then the physiological sensation, it's just energy. Like, oh, it's just energy. Cool! It's going to give you energy to perform at your best. Because if you did not care at all, which is the opposite of nervousness, by the way. The opposite of nervousness is not being calm. It is not caring. Well, then you wouldn't put your best foot forward. If you're trying to go for a promotion at work, if you have a new business deal, if there's anything that matters to you, obviously there's going to be a sensation of excitement present within you. But that's just a sign of life. Enjoy that. There's going to come a day where you're 85 years of age and you're body is wrinkly, your balls are down to your knees, you can barely walk. Maybe with modern medicine it's going to be 120 years of age. You'd give anything to experience that sensation of nervousness again and to be able to be in the presence of a beautiful woman. Another way to overcome nervousness, build tension as well as fun, is to pay attention to the principle of self-amusement. You are so worried that she will approve of every word you say, and you unconsciously say what you say to get a good reaction from her. You're not grounded in your own sense of identity and validation as a man. You have to validate yourself. But currently, you're using her as a source of validation, which is inevitably going to lead to failure and a loss of attraction. So instead, say what you say primarily to make yourself laugh. Have you ever had that where a friend or a family member of yours tells a joke and the joke objectively isn't funny, but he laughs or she laughs so hard about the joke that you can't help but feel good emotions because he or she owns the laughter so much? Because if you congruently own the state you're in and you speak with a sense of conviction, and she realizes you're really not telling the joke or the story to get validation, but just because it's a natural expression of who you are and you want to be engaged with life and you're self-amusing, those emotions are going to transfer over to her with mirror neurons, and she'll be impressed by the very fact that you are a self-validating human being. Because remember, if you are more emotionally reactive to her than she is to you, attraction is decreased. Validate yourself, self-amuse, and she will have a fantastic time as a result of it. Because all of the emotions you want her to feel, you got to generate within yourself first.
Stage 5, the kiss.
The kiss. Yes, you have to go for the kiss on the first date. Even if you may not be comfortable with this, remember, I've done this with hundreds of clients from 30 countries, from all around the world. Going for the kiss on the first date is important. I mean, babe, back in the day when you were dating inferior men, if a guy that you like wouldn't go for the kiss on the date, how's that for you?
I would think he didn't like me.
Exactly. She'd wonder whether you even like her, if she likes you, obviously. So you don't force the kiss upon her, you're not uncalibrated. You're very calm. And you build things gradually, as we've shown earlier, and then you can either at some point just go, by the way, 2 seconds. You were unsure because of the lipstick, yeah? Or there's a really simple way to see whether she's actually ready, which is you say, hey, I really like your hair.
Thank you.
If she lets you do this, and she doesn't back away to stroke her hair and put it behind her ear, if she lets you do this and she doesn't back away, there's a high chance she's ready for the kiss. And if she moves away a little bit, then I'm not going to go for the kiss. Absolutely. Because remember, you want to be calibrated, you want to be respectful. But if I do this and I say, hey, I really like your hair.
Thank you.
And you don't have to announce it, you don't have to say, can I kiss you right now? Remember, you're going so slow that if she wants to back out, no problem. You respect it, you don't cause drama, you immediately clear space. If I go in and you just want, exactly. And then I can just, here, by the way, here's a really cool trick. If she does this, you can simply say, no, silly, I just can tell you something. Remember when we were talking about jiu-jitsu earlier? It's not a real martial art, it's a dance.
That's not true.
See, you can always rescue it. The only thing that's going to make something awkward is if you believe in the awkwardness. By the way, there's also no such thing as awkward silences. There's just silences. There's no AW on the periodic chart of elements or whatever it's called. Awkwardness is just the meaning you give a situation, a disempowering one at that. So as long as there's just a silence, there's no problem with it, and you can actually allow her to fill it. Now, obviously, as we talked about earlier, you need to assume the burden of the conversation, but every now and then it's perfectly fine for there to be a silence, maybe even in a couple of minutes leading up to the kiss, and let her fill it and let her invest in it. But whether she backs out or anything happens that's quote-unquote awkward, if you just own it, you're obviously respectful and calibrated, but if you just own it and have zero insecurity around it, there is no problem. The only issue happens when you become insecure around it. You're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I don't know what to do now. That's weird. Just because she's not ready to kiss you now doesn't mean she's not ever gonna kiss you. It may very well mean that, and you might never see her again, perfect, no problem. Or she may just wanna kiss you in half an hour, or on the next date. No issue. But go for the kiss and communicate to her that you're a man who's dating with intent.
Stage 6, goodbye.
For the goodbye, you're either gonna kiss her if she wanted to kiss you, or you're gonna give her a hug or a simple kiss on the cheek. Usually a simple hug is fine, or if you did kiss her beforehand, then you can just go for another kiss and then you move on. Very important, don't drag the kiss out too long. It's better if you, the man, are the one who interrupts the kiss, because again, it's gonna make you come across as less needy and more secure.
Stage 7, after the date.
Don't think that just because the date is over, you can now go no contact for a couple of days, just ignore her, and then invite her for a second date. If she actually liked you and you built a lot of value in her eyes, you now have to give her comfort and reassurance. So after the first date, right afterwards, you send her this text. Was fun today, let me know when you're home safe. Boom. And then she'll tell you, okay, great, got home safe, thanks so much, had such a great time. And then you just like her message, you wait a day or two, and then you can invite her for a second date. And if you want me to help you personally find the right woman, then click the link below and apply for a free initial consultation call. Talk to you soon.